Good evening and welcome to the Village Board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, February 8. As has been the case for the last many months, we are meeting remotely via Zoom. You can pick up the links to our Zoom meetings, both the Village Board and other boards and commissions of the village, at our website, pleasantville-ny.gov. And within a few days, a recording of our regular meeting, as well as the work session that precedes it, will be available at pctv76.org. So our next regular meeting is 2 weeks from today on Monday, February 22, work session at 7, regular session at 8 p.m. So I have a bunch of announcements to make, but I don't wish to burden the calendar of the folks from the pool task force any more than I have to. So the first item on our agenda tonight is a presentation by Troy Tassier, who is the chair of our Pleasantville Pool Task Force, about the survey results and their work thus far. After that's done, we can chat about it, have questions if there are any, and then we'll return to the regular meeting and I'll go through my list of announcements. So welcome, Troy, and I see a bunch of other folks who are part of the Pool Task Force. Thank you guys for coming tonight, and thank you for all the work you've been doing and will do.
All right, thank you. New computer, I couldn't find my mute button. Should I go ahead and share my screen and get started, Peter?
Please do.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep. You can.
Okay, go ahead and go. Okay. Okay, thanks for giving us the time tonight. I appreciate it. What I want to sort of do in launching into this is just very quickly mention sort of the history of the town pool here in Pleasantville. And this was new information to me a few months ago, but the location of the Pleasantville pool is in some sense about over a century old. So back many decades, perhaps even over a century ago, there used to be a swimming hole in Pleasantville. And until the 1930s, that's where folks went to go swimming in the local area. And then in the 1930s, the people in the village, businesses, they got together, they got a steam shovel, they started digging a hole, and members of the community volunteered to go help, place timbers and all kinds of different stuff. They eventually got some money from the WPA, hired local unemployed workers, and built the first Pleasantville pool. And that pool existed for somewhere around 40 years or so. And then in the 1970s, it was substantially updated, again, with the help of local businesses and civic organizations, along with the village government. And they created, for the most part, the pool that we see over on Lake Street today. And then since that time, there's been some other upgrades. From what I understand, in 1996, there were some upgrades to the buildings and whatnot around the pool. And then, of course, just a few years ago, there was, updates to showers and different things and whatnot. So just real quickly, that's the old swimming hole. I don't know if folks have seen a picture of this before or not, but that's where kids and adults and whatnot used to go swim. And again, it's the same location as where the current pool is located. And then this was July 4th, 1939, we believe. So that's the original pool. And for the most part, it's the same footprint as we have today. It was different in that the depth, we believe, was a little bit more uniform. So when they updated it in the 70s, we believe they made the deep end a little bit deeper and the shallow end a little bit shallower. You can kind of tell that a little bit because you can see there's ladders where the shallow end is now. So that probably gives some hints that it was maybe a little bit deeper than it was today. And then I also like, if you notice here, it appears to me at least that there was a diving board. And if you look at the height of the people here, unless those are, young children or something, it was a pretty tall diving board, which I don't expect we will have something similar today, but or in the future. But in any case, some neat artifacts of history here. So as many of you know, in the fall, we were tasked with forming a pool task force to look at the future of the pool. We did our best to sort of move forward and collect a diverse group of people, people with young kids and old kids and no kids, and people that use town camp, swim team, people with senior citizens, just the whole range of things. And we came up with a group of 13 people. And we've been, working, meeting usually every Thursday night to sort of go through different aspects of the things that we're working on. And tonight what we're going to talk about is a survey that we put together that I assume many of you have filled out and know about. And I just want to, everyone has been doing a lot of work on the task force that I appreciate greatly. But Jill Jameson in particular spent just tons and tons of work putting the survey together and getting it out. So I wanted to recognize her quickly before we move on. So we conducted this survey December 11th to 21st of December. There were a few responses that trickled in past that up until January 4th. We actually left the survey open, but for the most part, all of the responses, not all of them, but the vast majority, other than a few, came in December 21st or earlier. And again, the goal here was to assess the community's preferences for what should be in that pool space. And I know I circulated a report to the village board. I'm going to try to be, I'm an academic, so we can never be too brief, but I'll try to be very brief tonight, or as brief as I can be. But I'm happy to dive into things in more depth with any questions that you may have. I'm not going to go through everything that's on this slide. I just kind of want to summarize that I thought it was an absolutely fabulous response rate to the survey. So we received 936 responses. And as part of the responses, we collected the respondents stated how many people and kids and adults and everything were in their household. And if you count all of those household members up, it comes to a little bit over 3,500 household members that were represented in this survey. And if you think about the size of our community, I think that's a pretty impressive response. A mix of people from the village as well as the school district who also commonly use the pool. A lot of current or most recent pool members in 2019 as well as previous years responded. We can talk about those later if you'd like, but I don't want to spend up too much time on that. We were also really happy that it appeared to be a relatively balanced survey in the sense that, we had good responses from people that joined the pool as family members, individuals, seniors, and, it's not exact, but it ballpark matches up to what we had most recently at the pool, according to 2019 membership information. Another thing that I think underscores the importance of the pool to the community is respondents said how long they have been members of the pool. And 31% of the respondents that were pool members have been members for 10 or more years, 19% for 6 to 10 years. So people don't just join the pool and sort of pop in for a year and pop out. It's definitely they're longstanding members. They join and they're around for the long haul. And I think not only the response rate, but this is one of the things that I think really stands out in terms of stating that the pool is really a community resource. Addition, this is kind of the last sort of representation slide. It is pretty clear when you look at the use of the pool by the respondents. It isn't, we didn't get responses that were dominated by one group, such as only people that go to summer camp use the pool, or only lap swimmers, or only the swim team. There was a good representation from all of the different types of use at the pool in the survey respondents. So I was happy with that as well. Big message, and one of the things that we've talked about before in the board meetings, the kiddie pool. And the two most clear messages in the survey, 91% of people responded that they would like to have a separate kiddie pool. 84% would also like a fence around that kiddie pool area. And it was really common across all, I would say, demographic groups of pool users. So 90% of respondents with young kids want a separate kiddie pool, and 96% of respondents without young kids want a kiddie pool. So the non-kid families want the kids in their space even more than the parents do to some extent. So that was, I think, a very clear message. Now, one of the things that I think was maybe not quite, we didn't quite tease out as much as perhaps we would want, is what exactly we mean by a separate kiddie pool. And I think when you look at the comments that we got in the responses, there was a little bit more nuance than I've alluded to so far, in the sense that even people that said, I want a separate kiddie pool, they were sort of willing to be, I think, somewhat flexible. So we had a lot of comments like, for instance, safety is the #1 priority for our tiny ones. Depends on the overall pool design and layout. It's fantastic separate, but I didn't know how it would be integrated. Happy to review options. So I think there is some flexibility, at least in the people that provided comments, in addition to just the yes/no responses, to think about designs creatively and how we may be able to, let me just back up. Of course, cost is something that everyone is going to have to sort of face with a potential new pool. I think people are flexible if it turns out that a separate kiddie pool is not attainable from a cost perspective to kind of work things out. So that is something probably for later discussion here. Not today, but in a future meeting. Other feedback that we got isn't quite as clear for some of the pool features. So a couple things that did come out pretty clear, but not quite as clear as the kiddie pool issue. People really think lap lanes are important. So 77% of people thought lap lanes were important or very important. And I think this is something I kind of want to point out, just because I think it speaks to the Pleasantville community a little bit. Remember, only 33% of respondents report that they use the lap lanes, but 77% of people said these lap lanes are important. So I think people, in responding to the survey, not only said, I want this, but they thought about what is good for the community when they responded as well. Another, it certainly wasn't uniform, but I would say people are not opposed to changing the pool into one that has a zero entry, sort of gradual slope access. There was a slight majority, 51%, thought it was important or very important. 35% thought it were neutral, but only about 12% were sort of thought this was something that wasn't worthwhile. Now, the other thing that sort of makes our pool different from some of the other pools is we don't have a lot of bells and whistles, right? We don't have, mushroom sprinklers or other sort of splashy water, slides, diving boards, that kind of stuff. If you look at these results, there isn't necessarily a clear answer here. So more people thought they were important or very important than thought they were not important or unimportant. And a lot of folks were neutral. So it wasn't like the kiddie pool where people said, we've got to have this, right? We need sprinklers so we can compete with Mount Pleasant or something like this, or we've got to have a diving board like some of the private club pools do and that kind of stuff. So we didn't get like, I gotta have it kind of feeling out of these features. But again, more people thought they were important than thought they were unimportant. We were kind of curious about those results, though, because if you think about them, they're kind of, other pools I've been to, there aren't a lot of, 50-year-old men like myself diving in off the diving boards, right? So it might be more things that families with young children would be interested in. So one of the things we did is we separated out the families with kids under 14 and looked to see if their responses were different than other folks. And there was slightly more support for things like sprinklers and just general splash stuff, but it wasn't overwhelming, right? The numbers went up a little bit towards preferring those things, but it wasn't like all of a sudden we had something like the separate kiddie pool when we looked at those families with just young kids. If we look at the comments, families seem to like the less chaotic nature of the Pleasantville pool versus the Mount Pleasant pool. Right. So there are comments about, Mount Pleasant is too hectic, right? people are running all over the place. It's too big. They like sort of the calm vibe that we get in the Pleasantville pool. But at the same time, there were also some comments about, my kids are bored, and things like that. So this is kind of me editorializing a little bit here. So this isn't coming directly out of the survey, but I really sort of get the feeling that there's some balance that perhaps could be struck to, not overwhelm kids with kind of a water park feel of Mount Pleasant, which doesn't seem to be what the residents of the village want, but also giving the younger kids something a little bit extra, right? A little, sprinkler or a little bit of splash without destroying that relatively calm nature of our pool. That's sort of the feelings that I get, not only from looking at the response numbers, but from reading through the comments fairly carefully. And also, folks like Matt and the rec department and other members of our task force went through and read the comments as well. Some other things. In general, people responded that they typically like our pool. They like that there's the 3 sections. They like the shallow area, the medium area, and the deep area. They also seem to be relatively happy with the pool size. So I know that this is something that Joe brought up when we presented this to the PRAB group. In some sense, there might be like a self-selection bias here that, people choose the Pleasantville pool because they like it, right? The people that come here like what they see. If they didn't like what they see, they would be somewhere else, right? And that's, a lot of pool members responded. It also may just be the case that people live in Pleasantville, so they join the Pleasantville pool, and they may not think too much about, well, what else could we have that would be something different and something new? So I think that there's still room, even though people like what we have, of thinking outside the box and not necessarily just replicating what we have if we were to decide to build a new pool, but engaging people that do this across the New York metro area and trying to come up with some ideas of how we can creatively use the space. Another thing that came out is, while people are happy with the pool size, they definitely would like to see more deck space and seating. They want a place to sit down and watch their kids swim, or to relax in the sun or in the shade, depending on what they prefer. We'll talk about that in a minute, but they see our deck space as not being big enough. Another thing that they would like in the deck space is more shade. We'll get to this in a minute, but 73% of people thought that pool provided umbrellas were important or very important. And then there were some comments about more sun and less sun over the pool and stuff like that. I don't know exactly how we change the angle of the pool to tilt it toward the sun and whatnot, but if we could, people would like a little bit more sun over the pool on average. The other sort of features around the pool, there's numbers up here, but I'll just sort of pull out the big points. People think pool provided chairs are important, and they also feel that pool provided umbrellas would be important if we could do that. There were a lot of comments about the snack bar. I don't think we need to get into those tonight, but it's something that Matt and the rec department and maybe the food vendor could look at. But it was pretty overwhelming that people think having the snack bar there is important or very important. And I underscore that partly because there are some both community pools and private pools around that don't necessarily have a snack bar. But people in Pleasantville do like having the snack bar there. The other thing that comes out pretty big is having a picnic area is something that almost a majority of people, I misspoke, excuse me, that a majority of people think is either important or very important. And again, that's something that could perhaps be teased out in the community a little bit better. I don't know if they think about a picnic area as, the picnic tables that are adjacent to the snack bar currently, or if they're thinking about, it'd be great if we had some picnic tables between where the pool is and the basketball court in a grassy area or something. But again, that's something that perhaps can be teased out a little bit later. The next part, I want to sort of be careful about how I present it. So we asked some questions about what people were willing to pay if significant upgrades were made to the pool, right? So it's not what are they willing to pay for the current pool, but what are they willing to pay if significant upgrades are made. And the other thing that I want to be careful about is if people haven't seen the survey or didn't take it or whatever. What I'm about to present is not some statement about, this would pay for the expected costs of a new pool, right? And I know the board knows that, and the mayor and Eric and Noreen and everybody, but I'm not sure how many people are here from the general community. So I just want to be careful about that people don't look at these numbers and say, oh, this is what they're going to charge or something like that. But these are the results for what people said they were willing to pay. And for the most part, family memberships, so let me just actually back up one step real quick. So the current family membership is $400. So we asked people, would you be willing to pay $500, $600, $700, $800, or $900? And a majority of people, 35%, 30%, were willing to pay $500 to $600. And the average response was about $625. Now, of course, it's a truncated number here, and not that many people were up here, but that is enough to kind of be pulling that average above the median and whatnot. There wasn't much difference between the village residents and the school district residents that responded to the survey, but it does appear that people would be willing to pay at least a little bit more to join the pool if we were to make some significant improvements. When we go to individual memberships, again, the lowest number we gave them was more than they currently pay. So the current individual membership number is $200. The first number we gave them was $250, and we got a majority of people saying $250. There were, 48% were up here, but you can see for the most part, people were down in these bottom two groups. And the average was $293. And again, not much difference between the village residents and the school district residents. And one of the things that came out in the comments with the individual memberships that struck me was that the individual members appear to be, I think, more diverse than some of the family memberships. So some of the individual members are high school or college students. Some of them are, single professional adults. Some of them are, people that just moved to the village. So some people use it for recreation. Some people use it because they go lap swimming every day. So there's a lot of variation in those individual memberships, and that might be something that the rec department may want to look at as far as pricing, perhaps differently depending on, students versus non-students, lap swimmers versus not, and some things of that nature perhaps. The senior membership is very different than all the other ones. Again, the lowest number was $90. The current membership for seniors is $75. And it's a very bimodal response. So about a third of folks said reported the lowest number as their maximum number they'd be willing to pay. And almost a third said $150, which was the largest number we gave them. So seniors, I think, again, are a very diverse group. Perhaps there's some room to sort of move pool membership up with them. But I think there's perhaps less room there, like in the individual memberships, than there is for the family memberships. When you dive into the comments on price, there's all kinds of stuff. It's sort of hard, there's no quick summary of the diversity of opinion on price, but we did pull out a few comments that I think kind of represent some of the basic feelings across the spectrum. So some people said we'd be willing to pay over $1,000 if it was a place we could spend an entire day, right? This is sort of one of the comments that talked about sort of their kids being bored, right? If the space was upgraded to a level that all of my children would want to go to on a regular basis, we would spend more than specified, right? But I've been told the pool is boring and limited. And then on the other side of the coin, right? So the people at the top are willing to pay, perhaps even more than what we listed. The folks down here, are definitely more price sensitive. So there's a comment about the village seniors having, essentially paid for the pool over their lifetime in terms of their taxes, and they don't feel that, they should be hit with a big increase for a new pool. And then, this member down here, please control the cost. People are struggling, right? So obviously, particularly during the pandemic, people are in different places financially. And while sort of those averages are above what people are paying now, that's not going to work for everybody in the village. And of course, that needs to be taken account of. So just some quick takeaways here. I think that, that response rate, Jill and I hazarded our guesses the night before the survey went out. And we guessed our top number that we thought we might get was 350. So when we got 936, and I think we actually had 350 within the first hour or two that the survey was out there. We sort of were blown away by the response rate. And I think that just speaks to how important the pool is to the community here. In general, people reported they like the current pool. They like the size, they like the 3 different sort of depth areas, they like the kiddie pool, and they value the lap lanes. If they could add something to the pool, it would be more deck space, more shade and umbrellas. Again, the numerical responses indicated a strong preference for a separate and fenced-in kiddie pool. People seem on average to be in favor of zero entry. 51% stated important or very important, and I believe about 35% said it was, 35%, my numbers aren't adding up. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, it is 35% said that they were indifferent, essentially, or that they were neutral. I think there's nuanced support for additional features like sprinklers and slides and sort of splashy stuff, we'll call it. But people definitely don't want to turn the Pleasantville pool into, Mount Pleasant Light or something like that, where it's sort of a de facto water park. There does seem to be some support for a limited pool fee increase, as long as there are significant improvements to the pool. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, this needs to be balanced with maintaining access for the community at large. And that was a little bit longer than I intended, but oops.
Great.
I'm back, but lost my screen for a second. But that's the basics of what we had in the survey.
Troy and all of your colleagues, thank you for that. I didn't doubt that we had the right team on the job to begin with, and you've delivered beyond any reasonable expectation. So thank you so much for that. So I just had a couple of points to make, and then folks can ask questions as they will. One of them, just to sort of set in context why we're talking about this, is that we fully intend to open the pool this year. We intended to open it last year. But as Troy has already indicated in his preamble, lots of pieces of the pool date back many decades, and we're clearly at the point where it doesn't make sense to keep fixing the very old car because something else is going to go wrong that will cost a lot. So the painful piece of that is it's likely that such a venture is going to cost certainly between $2 and $3 million and possibly a bit more than that. And so that's a tough nut to crack, but not impossible. And part of the reason it was interesting to highlight the village residents' interest in the pool versus school district residents is both of those groups currently come to the pool, and we very much want them to. We depend on that. Certainly, kids and families that go to school together should be able to go to the pool together, as true for our rec programs. The modest problem we confront is that whatever piece of this is not covered through the revenue of memberships becomes the responsibility of the tax base, and that hits only village residents. So that's part of the balancing act we'll be in as we sort of work our way through with you guys about what we ought to do, what we think it might cost, and how we pay for it. So, but I do think I can certainly speak for myself that lots of us view the pool as a linchpin piece of community life in Pleasantville. Obviously, not something absolutely everyone uses, but something that a big slice of our community uses at various points in their lives, and feels like a piece of the glue that holds the body politic together. So folks have questions, comments?
Well, I'll step in if nobody's going to say anything. Troy and Jill and the rest of you, thank you so much. I'm very impressed both with the results of the survey and the presentation. I found it very helpful. I guess my only question at this point isn't so much about the survey as so far as what the next step would be. And one of the things I was thinking about is the input that we had had previously from pool, and what is the term for somebody who designs a pool? Matt, maybe you can help me with this. So that there were a limited set of people who we could potentially go to redesign our pool. So I was wondering, Troy, if you had thought about that, if you were in conversation with Matt about what the next step might be in terms of coming up with a design that would be more suited to what it seems like the community is looking for.
Yeah, I think this may actually be a better question for Eric, because we've been, or Matt, because we've been in conversations about getting in touch with different, again, I don't know the word, pool designers, kind of.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
that can give us some help, right? Because what we would ideally like to do is have someone take a look at the space, take a look at what we've got, take a look at the survey results, and say, this is given your community, this is what makes sense for the space. And again, this is more definitely a question for Matt, from a more like engineering sort of pool functionality, filtration, pumping, all that kind of stuff that I don't know anything about. What should we do with that kind of stuff? But I'll defer that question to Eric and Matt.
Yeah, so Nicole, we've surveyed our peer municipalities for the names of consulting firms that they've utilized, consulting and engineers. And so we're currently setting up individual Zoom calls with a group of 3 or 4 of them to talk through. And Troy will be part of that process so we can find the right fit.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Actually, Nicole, we already have, I think, Eric, 2 or 3 calls scheduled for next week. So that's happening.
Okay, that sounds promising.
Another question that has come my way a few times, not only recently, but in the past, is whether there's a chance to expand the grounds of the pool. On the far side of the pool, the chain link fence against the forested area is essentially on the property line. The land beyond is the property of the cottage school. So over the years, we've talked to them a few times. As you may have noticed, if you have paid much attention, there's a fairly steep grade that rises fairly quickly. And so it isn't really just a matter of pushing the fence out. You'd have to undertake some changes. So the last time we had a conversation with the cottage school, they were open to the idea of our using some additional space. And mind you, can't speak for them now, this dates back a ways. But the terms of that were such that they were not in a position for a whole series of legal reasons to sell us additional land because of the terms in which the land is held. But they'd be willing potentially to let us use it, perhaps for a small easement fee, but subject to an agreement that on some relatively short notice, we would return the property to the condition it was in when we got it and vacate. So it's reasonable enough. Those folks, I don't mean to criticize them at all. I think that was a perfectly reasonable response to their conditions. But the problem is, if you confronted the possibility of a fairly significant expense, you'd be doing it on borrowed land, potentially on borrowed time. So the other piece we've looked at is, and we'll be looking at more obviously, is the land between the basketball court and the back of the pump house. One of the pieces of this that seems clear all the way around is that the pump and filter room, which is currently below grade, ought to be above grade, and that probably means it gets rebuilt and relocated. And getting rid of that thing that's at the end of the pool and is blocking access to the yard beyond might be a game changer in terms of how we could use the space we already have.
Yeah, I guess, sorry to, just to follow up on my earlier question, I'm thinking, Peter, while I'm listening to you, every once in a while, the Zoom thing just feels so wrong. You know what I mean? It's just
It's now one of those times.
so impossible to have a real conversation. Sorry. I almost feel like I'm rude every time I talk because there's this like, so I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm listening to the results of the survey and I'm coming away with certain takeaways, which is that we should maintain the 3 separate depths. We should have a separate kiddie pool area. We should look for more shaded seating areas. So I'm wondering, you know, at what stage in the process can we be useful? Or, you know, do we, you know, should we talk about, you know, what our takeaway is, or should we hear from the different consultant agencies first and then respond to that? Does that make sense?
So I think when Eric, Noreen, and I first started going out to consultants before we had some of this information, you know, it was a little bit more of a shot in the dark. The information that we received in the survey and that Troy and the committee have gained really, and we've spoken about this. It's given us a lot more focus on you know, not maybes, but this is kind of what we're looking for. So I think that gives us a much better directional approach this time around than we had last time. And I think in a way, you know, once we kind of dictate to these consultants, I think was the word we were looking at. But once we're able to tell them a little more straightforward what it is that we're looking to do, the suggestions will come a little bit more clearer. Troy, do you anything to add to that?
No, I think, I mean, I can't speak to where you were prior to our conversations, right? When you first talked to Aquatica and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of information in the survey, and my hope would be, and again, I don't have any experience with pool design or hiring pool designers or any of that kind of stuff, but I would hope that they will come back with a range of options, and at least to some degree a range of prices as well. That, you know, this would be your ideal. Here would be a way to do it a little bit cheaper. Here would be something that would be in between, things of that nature. And I think that at that point, then it's clear the village board needs to be involved, right? Once we start having those ideas put in front of us.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, pool people. Really, really, really good stuff, and very, very much appreciated. So
yeah, and just one thing to say, you know, I think I know this started out, Troy, with you being concerned about how this is all going, but I think this is sort of the ideal embodiment of participatory democracy, you know, where we complain and then we get conscripted. So thank you so much for taking your time.
he will have learned his lesson. We'll never see him again.
Well, I'm very happy to help out.
I'd also like to thank everyone who's been involved in this. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
and I should be clear as well. It's an entire committee and 13 of us meeting just about every Thursday night for an hour. And again, Jill did a fabulous amount of work putting the survey together. And she was really, really the person that drove everything on the survey. So she deserves more thanks than anyone.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's a huge difference between doing something that's sort of right for the community and something that's exactly right for the community. And you guys collectively will be that difference.
All right. We'll release you. You only have 3 days until Thursday. So thank you all. We'll have you back soon. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Now let's circle back. I had a bunch of announcements to make and a few things to point out. So first and foremost, painfully and unhappily, COVID's top on our list. I anxiously look forward to the day when it won't be, but just for the moment, painfully it is. So let me just share my screen. Two things to say. If you get yourself to westchestergov.com, that's the county website, you can also get to this link from our pleasantville-ny.gov website. But go to westchestergov.com, the homepage for Westchester County, right at the top. Two things to note. One is go to the dashboard, which I will do in a moment, which gives you the statistics up to date for Westchester by community. And right below it, the current information about vaccine eligibility and vaccine supplies and vaccine scheduling. So for example, you can view the vaccine allocation in the current week, which is week 8, and see how much vaccine was allocated to various locations. As you can see from this, they are starting to roll out some vaccines, again, in relatively small numbers, 100 doses, to some pharmacies. Talked to Sal DeLeo at Pleasantville Pharmacy today. He is on the list and is at the moment not been told when he will first get any vaccines to deliver or how many, but he is on the list, and that may mean that we have a very local option. But at any rate, this is the place to go for vaccine eligibility and scheduling. Right at the top, if you click go to the dashboard, I've shown this before, it is worth looking again. At the bottom, you can scroll between active cases, cumulative cases, and new cases. So scroll on down to the Village of Pleasantville. Since the last report, which was on Friday, there have been 11 new cases in the Village of Pleasantville. Cumulative, the Village of Pleasantville has 531 cases since they started counting. That is almost certainly an undercount because of the expectation that there are a lot of cases that were not tested and diagnosed. And then lastly, the number of active cases, which are defined as folks who are within 2 weeks of a positive test. So happily, despite the fact that we had 11 positives over the weekend, we are down to 48 active cases, which means that quite a few of the cases that came onto our list 2 weeks ago have now dropped off. So that number was up over 80 at one point last week. I would not call that reason to breathe easy, because over the weekend, as I say, we had 11 positives. So what's the bottom line? I encourage you to go to this website periodically and keep an eye on what's going on, and make clear that to you and to your family and to those you interact with, that this pandemic is far from over. And in fact, the numbers we've been seeing in Pleasantville are very, very nervous making, since they substantially exceed what we saw back in the spring. So a couple of other things to report. We are continuing our police reform review as part of the state mandated program. I will share again my screen and just remind folks of where to find resources. Get thee to pleasantville-ny.gov. This is the Pleasantville homepage. Just as I mentioned before, this is a quick link to the COVID dashboard. First item in the quick link is the Police Reform Collaborative. And in the left column, this is a growing list of things, not only some materials and background, but also quick links to the videos of the 5 public forums we have so far had. I thank Paul Alvarez, who is going to undertake and run a Spanish-speaking forum, which is going to take place on, let's see, I've got this date here. Paul, it's Wednesday, is it?
The 17th.
Okay,
Correct.
Wednesday the 17th. There it is. Go ahead, Paul.
Wednesday, yeah.
So Wednesday the 17th at 7:30 p.m.
Yes, it's actually, yes, Wednesday the 17th.
Why does it say Tuesday the
Correct. There was
17th in that case?
I have to fix that.
Okay.
All right, we've identified a problem. Wednesday the
Also-
17th.
Also, Mayor, it's just so everyone knows, the presentation is going to be in Spanish, but English as well, because I think it's important that if anyone's interested in just specifically how, the police reform will have an impact on non-English speaking residents or immigrants. I think it'd be important if anyone wants to know this information. Also coming from my job outside of here, which is I'm an immigration attorney, I'm going to discuss some of the different things that are happening in the immigrant community and their concerns when it comes to dealing with the police. So I welcome anyone. As like I said, I'll be translating and interpreting both in English and Spanish. So anyone's welcome to the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Paul, for doing that. A great resource for us on the village board. Delighted to have you. So same category. We've set up an email, as I've mentioned in the past, policereform@pleasantville-ny.gov. So if you have a comment or want to reach out in some way, you can do so. First off, to any of us, our email connections are available on the website, but you can also send an email to policereform@pleasantville-ny.gov, and those emails get assembled into a set and distributed to all 5 members of the village board. So we're also in the month of February going to be working on drafts of the recommendations that have come out of the first 5 meetings, and we'll add to them commentary that has arrived out of the Spanish speaking forum taking place on the 17th. And then I want to add to that, we received notice today that the task force on this same subject, police reform, that was established by Westchester County, has produced a report, and that report is going to be sent to the Board of Legislators for approval and will soon to be available. But County Executive Latimer is going to have a press conference and discussion about this tomorrow, Tuesday, February 9 at 2 p.m., which you can watch at www.facebook.com/westchestergov. And they've given us a bullet point list of some of the recommendations that have come out of this report, but we'll have the full report and make that available to all of you very quickly. And I would guess, based on conversations I've had in the last several weeks with folks at the county, that a number of the proposals they're going to present will feed into some of the things that are on our radar screen as recommendations, and in part represent some of the shared services that mean that county-wide, small departments like ours might be able to avail themselves of services that we collectively pay for via the county. So interesting stuff going on all that front. Again, if you have any comments, policereform@pleasantville-ny.gov. Couple of other scheduling announcements. The annual property tax grievance hearing night, which is established by state law, is Tuesday, February 16 from 5 to 9 p.m. We usually do that in person, but this year we'll be doing it via Zoom. So again, you can get the link to that at pleasantville-ny.gov. If you are interested in filing a property tax grievance, you should reach out to the assessor, Lloyd Tash. Again, you can do that through pleasantville-ny.gov. The March village elections are on Tuesday, March 16. The mayor and 2 trustees are up for election. By the time of our next meeting, the ballots will have been finalized by the County Board of Elections, and we will announce that when we have the information. And then in the category of a brighter and perhaps a little bit silly thing, many of you have read, no doubt, that Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow and therefore winter is going to continue. But it turns out that Westchester County Parks Department at Muscoot Farm has Cluxtatawny Henrietta. Here she is, and she says spring is coming early. So if you're a fan of Muscoot, or you would just like to think that the snow we get this week is near the end, if you go to YouTube and search on Henrietta Muscoot, you will get to a 6-minute 35-second video with the Parks Department staff and Cluxtatawny Henrietta. So having delivered that weighty and important announcement to the community, anybody else have any announcements to make? All right.
Thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead, David.
we will again this month have a what's going on in Pleasantville update coming via email and social media. So if there's anything anyone wants to add to that, please get it to me in the next day or so. And I work with Eric and our fabulous team in Village Hall to produce that.
And there will also be coming out shortly a new edition of Pleasantville Posts, our periodic newsletter that gets sent out via email or available on the website. And if you haven't signed up for news, you should do it. Left column on our website, and all that stuff will land in your inbox automatically. Then the last thing I wanted to mention is that I am the legislative chair for the Municipal Officials Association in Westchester. We are working on the set of priorities we have for the county, the New York State legislative season. Are less than optimistic about some of them, especially any that would involve the state delivering more money to municipalities. But we also have a number of items that are procedural that perhaps we could gain some leverage on. And so the Westchester Municipal Officials Association is meeting via Zoom with the entire delegation from Westchester to the state Senate and Assembly in a couple of weeks. I'll have more to report on that. But as I have mentioned in the past, one of the subjects that's rather high on the governor's radar screen is legalization of marijuana. And if that is a matter of interest or concern to you, I encourage you to keep up to date on what is going on. So, all right, anybody else? Comments from the board? All right, are there any comments from a member of the public? If so, raise your hand. I see none. With that, let's go to the resolutions. Let me share my screen. Okay, resolution number 19. Paul.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign the agreement with Cognitive and Behavioral Consultants of Westchester and Manhattan, LLP, to provide training and supervision in the implementation of a universal classroom dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, program for Pleasantville Strong for a fee of $18,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this is funded through the federal grant that supports Pleasantville Strong. So it is the village is the fiscal agent for the federal grant that supports Pleasantville Strong, and that's where the money comes from. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Number 20, Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign the agreement with Bond, Schoeneck, and King for bond counsel services at the rates identified in the engagement letter dated February 3rd, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's coincidental, but it's always been vaguely satisfying to me that we get bond services from Bond, Schoeneck and King.
Like it's a real deal right there.
Yeah. Eric, we've been using Bond, Schoeneck and King as bond counsel for many years with good success.
That's right. And Mary, the village treasurer, speaks very highly and recommends we continue our relationship.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Joe, number 21.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes of the regular meeting held on January 25th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or corrections to the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. David, number 22.
Resolved the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the notice of retirement from Dominic Bongarzone, sorry, Dominic, motor equipment operator effective February 22nd, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
So Dominic has been with us for 24 years. I hope it's not the recent spate of snowstorms, but long service, very much appreciated. We wish him a very happy retirement. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Number 23, Back to you, Paul.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to enter into an agreement with the town of Mount Pleasant for the purpose of cooperative bidding for the highway construction materials.
Is there a second?
Second.
Continuing a longstanding practice of the town and the village to work together. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 24, Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the appointment of Pasquale Fucal to the job of title School Crossing Guard Job Code 0141-02 at an hourly rate of $20.62 effective February 9, 2021, with a probationary period of not less than 12 weeks to a maximum of 52 weeks.
Is there a second?
Second.
Welcome, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Joe, number 25.
Just 1 second. Let me move. Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget amendment for fiscal year 2021 as listed below. From the general fund, $56 from administrative conferences to administrative vacation buyback, and $5,100 from snow removal outside services to snow removal equipment. And then from the general fund, $100,000 transfer to capital for the Clinton Street Center improvements. And from the capital fund, the $100,000 interfund transfer from general fund to Clinton Street Center improvements, CDBG.
Is there a second?
Second.
Eric, you want to report the good news about the Clinton Street Center?
Sure. So the village was awarded funds to construct an emergency generator at the senior center, along with some other rather minor projects as well associated with that. So $100,000, it's matching funds, which includes in-kind services such as engineering and administrative overhead as well. So that's the good news. The bad news is emergency standby generators are on back order. So moving this money now enables us to place the order, and we'll be lucky to get the actual generator in hand within the next 3 to 4 months. So if all goes well, this will be a spring summer project.
Well, certainly in advance of the next hurricane season. So that's good news for obvious reasons, not only for the folks that live upstairs, but also we have long wondered in the event of an extended outage, whether we would be able to continue to support not only the senior needs, but also a place for people to come and warm and charge up and all of that. So the chance to make sure that building continues to operate even in a power outage is great news for us. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Number 26. Back to Paul, right? Oh, David.
No, David.
Sorry.
Resolve the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract for payment of claims dated February 8th, 2021 for fiscal year ending 2021, covering check numbers 99401 to 99546 from the general fund, $155,401.26. The water fund, $108,935.07. The capital fund, $43,289.10. The refuse fund, $9,924.49, and $50,000 from the trust fund for a total of $367,549.92. The claims attached.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
As always, if you go into our agenda that you can get to via pleasantville-ny.gov, you can click into the payment of claims. All these blue items are hot linked to the actual documents. Comments, questions regarding the payment of claims? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion approved. Stop my share. All right, that's the last of our regular agenda items. Is there any new business or comments from the public? All right. Let me just remind folks, we had a great presentation by Troy Tassier and the folks on the pool task force. The tape of that will be up at pctv76.org within a few days. And I really encourage anyone who knows anyone who's interested in the question of the pool and wants to dig into the details of what's going on with our task force to take a look at that at at pctv76.org within a few days. And at the same time, stay in touch with Matt in the rec department, not only about the pool, but about evolving plans for this summer. We had in work session a discussion about how we can run our summer camp programs and how we can run our pool program consistent with the regulations that we expect will be in place from the county and the state health departments. So working hard on all of that and are optimistic that we'll be able to do both of those things. And then lastly, we began our work session with a discussion with Susan Favate from BFJ Planning regarding a proposed change in our zoning for certain residential districts to establish what's called a floor area ratio, which controls the total bulk of a house based on the square footage of occupiable space as compared to the lot area. So Susan and her team at VFJ are putting together draft language. They gave us a memo that's available on the web regarding their research so far. And I imagine relatively soon we'll be looking at that draft, and at the point at which we think it is ready for wider discussion, we will post it for public hearing, which is the necessary next step. Just remind you of events coming up: tax grievance night, Tuesday the 16th, 5 to 9, Spanish translated police reform session next Wednesday the 17th at 7:30. Again, both items, you can get the Zoom link at pleasantville-ny.gov. And then lastly, our regular village board meeting 2 weeks from today, Monday the 22nd. And we are kicking off budget work sessions for the draft budget for the fiscal year that begins June 1, 2021. There you have it. Unless someone else can think of something else to say, can I have a motion to adjourn and return to work session?
No, Mayor, we want to talk about, we have to go into not executive session to a work session.
No, we're going back to work session.
Going back to work session, yeah.
Right.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good evening. Thank you. We're going to return to work session.